Everyone was at my sister's engagement party, except me. My dad said, "You've always been the jealous one. We didn't want you making a scene." I just replied, "Then you won't mind missing my wedding too." 2 weeks later, my uncle sent a photo of the invitation they never received, and my parents called me crying. I, 32M, found out about my sister's engagement party the way most people find out about things they're not invited to, through social media. A cousin's Instagram story showed the backyard of my parents' house strung with lights, tables covered in white cloth, and faces I recognized. My sister stood in the center wearing a ring that caught the camera flash, her fiancé's arm around her waist. The caption read, "So happy for these two," with a string of heart emojis. I stared at my phone for a long time that night. The party had happened yesterday. 24 hours ago, while I was finishing a presentation at work and grabbing takeout on my way home, my entire family had gathered to celebrate my sister without me. Not a single text, not a call, not even the courtesy of a lie about why I shouldn't come. I called my mother first. She answered on the fourth ring, her voice tight with that particular tone she used when she knew she'd been caught doing something wrong, but planned to defend it anyway. I asked her directly why I hadn't been invited to my own sister's engagement party. There was a pause. Then she said my father wanted to talk to me and put him on the line. Dad didn't waste time with pleasantries. He told me I'd always been the jealous one, always had to make everything about myself, and they didn't want me making a scene at such an important event. The words landed like stones. I asked him what scene I'd ever made, what I'd done to deserve being cut out of a family celebration. He brought up my college graduation, how I'd been upset that my parents had left early. He mentioned my birthday 2 years ago when I'd complained they'd forgotten to call. Every grievance was something I'd felt, something I'd expressed quietly, something that apparently marked me as too difficult to include. I felt something shift in my chest, a door closing that I hadn't realized was still open. I told him that was fine, that if I was too much trouble to invite to family events, then they wouldn't have to worry about attending mine either. He asked what I meant. I told him my girlfriend and I had been planning to get married next spring, and they could consider themselves uninvited. Then I hung up. The silence that followed felt enormous. My girlfriend found me sitting in the dark living room an hour later. She asked what happened, and I told her everything. She didn't say I was overreacting or that I should forgive them. She just sat next to me and asked if I was serious about uninviting them. I told her I'd never been more serious about anything. We'd been together for 4 years. We'd talked about marriage for the last 2, but hadn't made it official because I kept waiting for the right moment, kept thinking my family would want to be involved in the planning. That night, I realized I'd been waiting for people who didn't value me enough to send a simple invitation. We decided to move forward without them. I proposed properly 2 days later. Nothing elaborate, just the two of us and the ring I'd been carrying in my jacket pocket for 3 months. She cried and said yes, and for the first time in weeks, I felt light. We set a date for April and started planning immediately. Small wedding, just close friends, and the family members who'd actually been present in my life. My girlfriend's parents were thrilled. Her mother asked about my family, and I told her they wouldn't be attending. She didn't push, just squeezed my hand and said she was sorry. My uncle called me a week after the engagement party. He was my father's younger brother, someone I'd always been close to growing up. He asked if I was okay, said he'd heard about what happened. I told him I was fine, better than fine actually, and that I was engaged. He congratulated me with genuine warmth, asked about the wedding, and I told him the date and details. He said he'd be honored to attend and asked if I was sending invitations soon. I told him I was, but my parents wouldn't be receiving one. There was a pause on the line. Then he told me he understood, that what they'd done was wrong, and he supported my decision. That conversation meant more to me than I could express. At least one person in my family saw this for what it was. We sent out invitations 3 weeks later. Cream-colored cards with simple gold lettering. My girlfriend's parents received theirs. My uncle and aunt received theirs. Several cousins who'd reached out after the engagement party received theirs. My parents' names were nowhere on the guest list. 2 weeks after the invitations went out, my phone rang at 9 in the evening. My mother's name appeared on the screen. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. She was crying, the kind of jagged sobs that made her words almost incomprehensible. She asked why they hadn't received a wedding invitation. I reminded her of our last conversation, what Dad had said, and what I'd told him in response. She said they didn't think I was serious, that they thought I'd calm down and forgive them. I asked her why I should forgive people who thought so little of me they couldn't be bothered to invite me to my own sister's engagement. She tried to explain that my sister had wanted me there, that it was Dad's decision, that she'd gone along with it to keep the peace. I asked her how many times in my life she'd gone along with his decisions at my expense. She didn't have an answer for that. I told her I'd made my choice the same way they'd made theirs, and I hung up. My father called 10 minutes later. He wasn't crying. He was angry. He said I was being childish, that I was punishing the whole family over one mistake, that I was breaking my mother's heart. I asked him if he'd considered how his decision had affected me. He said it wasn't the same thing, that engagement parties weren't as important as weddings. I told him he'd made it clear I wasn't important enough to include in family celebrations, so I was simply returning the favor. He started yelling then, calling me selfish and ungrateful. I ended the call. My sister texted me the next morning. She said she was sorry, that she hadn't known I wasn't invited until the day of the party, and by then it was too late to fix it. I asked her why she hadn't called me afterward. The typing indicator appeared and disappeared several times before she responded that she didn't know what to say. I told her that maybe she should have started with an apology. She said she was apologizing now. I pointed out that it was only after she found out she wasn't invited to my wedding. She stopped responding. My uncle sent me a photo 2 days later. It was a picture of the wedding invitation he'd received, and next to it, a screenshot of a family group chat I wasn't part of. My parents had sent a message asking if anyone had received an invitation to my wedding. Several people confirmed they had. My mother's message below said she couldn't believe I was really doing this, that I was tearing the family apart. My aunt had responded that maybe they should consider why I'd made this choice. My father replied that I'd always been difficult, and this proved it. I stared at those messages for a long time. Years of feeling like I was never quite enough, never quite right, suddenly made sense. This was how they talked about me when I wasn't there. This was what they really thought. I thanked my uncle for showing me. He told me he'd tried to make them understand, but they were too focused on being victims to see their own role in this. He said he was proud of me for standing my ground, that it couldn't have been easy. It wasn't, but it felt right. Update 1. The calls and messages didn't stop. My mother tried every few days, alternating between tears and anger. My father sent long texts about family obligation and respect. My sister's messages were fewer but followed the same pattern, apologies mixed with accusations that I was being cruel. I stopped responding to all of them. My girlfriend's family embraced me completely. Her father took me to lunch one afternoon and told me that family wasn't just blood, it was the people who showed up when it mattered. He said he was proud to have me as a son-in-law. I had to excuse myself to the bathroom because I wasn't prepared for how much those words would affect me. The wedding planning became a source of joy instead of stress. Every decision we made was ours alone. No one criticized our choices or tried to take over. No one made passive-aggressive comments about the venue or the flowers or the guest list. It was exactly what we wanted, and that freedom felt revolutionary. My uncle called me in February, 2 months before the wedding. He said my parents were devastated, that they'd expected me to change my mind by now. He wasn't calling to convince me to invite them. He just wanted me to know what was happening. I appreciated his honesty. I told him I hadn't changed my mind, that their devastation was a direct consequence of their choice to exclude me. He said he understood and that he'd see me in April. 3 weeks before the wedding, my sister showed up at my apartment. I opened the door to find her standing in the hallway, looking smaller than I remembered. She asked if we could talk, and I let her in. We sat in the living room, and she told me she was sorry, really sorry, and that she'd been a coward for not standing up for me. She said she'd called Dad the morning of the engagement party and asked where I was, and he'd told her I was too jealous to be happy for her. She'd believed him because it was easier than confronting him. She said she regretted it every day. I asked her why she was here now. She said she missed me, that she wanted to fix this, and that she hoped I'd reconsider inviting our parents to the wedding. I told her I appreciated the apology, but that my decision stood. She asked if I'd ever forgive them. I said maybe someday, but forgiveness didn't mean forgetting, and it definitely didn't mean giving them access to important moments in my life when they'd proven they didn't value me. She left looking sad, but she hugged me before she went. That was something. Update 2. The wedding day arrived in a blur of morning light and nervous energy. My girlfriend looked stunning in her dress. My uncle walked me through a moment of panic an hour before the ceremony. reminding me that I was making the right choice for the right reasons. The venue was perfect, filled with people who genuinely wanted to be there. The ceremony happened without interruption. No one crashed it. No one made a scene. My parents stayed away, and their absence felt less like a wound and more like a space where something toxic used to be. We said our vows in front of people who loved us, and when I kissed my wife for the first time, the applause was deafening. The reception was everything we'd hoped for. My uncle gave a toast that made everyone laugh and cry. My wife's father welcomed me into his family officially. Friends from college shared embarrassing stories. The dance floor filled early and stayed packed. At one point, I stood at the edge of the room and watched everyone celebrating, and I felt genuinely happy. Not happy despite my family's absence, just happy. My phone buzzed in my pocket around 10 that evening. A text from my mother asking if the wedding had happened, if I'd really gone through with it. I showed it to my wife, and she asked what I wanted to do. I turned off my phone and put it in my jacket pocket. Tonight wasn't about them. We left for our honeymoon the next morning. 2 weeks in Japan, just the two of us. No phones, no family drama, no explanations owed to anyone. When we came back, there were 17 missed calls from my parents and a dozen texts asking us to meet them for dinner. I didn't respond. Life moved forward. We settled into married life, started talking about buying a house, adopted a dog. My wife got a promotion at work. I started a new project that excited me. The absence of my parents' drama created space for actual happiness, and I realized how much energy I'd spent trying to manage their expectations and emotions. My uncle invited us to dinner 6 months after the wedding. My aunt made her famous lasagna, and we spent the evening laughing and talking about everything except my parents. As we were leaving, my uncle handed me an envelope. Inside was a letter from my sister. She wrote that she understood why I'd made the choices I did, that she didn't blame me, and that she hoped we could rebuild our relationship slowly. She included her new phone number and said I could reach out if I ever wanted to talk. No pressure, no guilt, just an olive branch extended without strings. I thought about it for a week before texting her. We met for coffee on a Saturday morning, just the two of us. The conversation was awkward at first, but slowly we found our rhythm. She told me about her wedding planning and how Dad had tried to control everything. She'd finally put her foot down and told him to back off. She said watching what happened with me had given her the courage to set boundaries. We talked for 3 hours, and when we left, we made plans to meet again the following month. My parents never apologized. They sent occasional messages through my sister, asking about us, hoping we'd reconsider our distance. I never responded directly. My sister told them we were fine, that we were happy, and that maybe someday things would be different. But that someday wasn't now, and it might never come. I built a life with people who chose to show up. My wife's family became my family. My uncle remained a steady presence. My sister and I slowly rebuilt trust. The people who'd excluded me faded into the background, and their absence stopped hurting. Eventually, it just became a fact, something that happened once that shaped who I became but didn't define me anymore. Looking back, that Instagram story was a gift in disguise. It showed me exactly where I stood with the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. And it gave me the clarity to choose myself, to choose the people who actually valued me, and to build something better than what I'd lost. The family I created was smaller than the one I was born into, but it was real, and it was mine.